You're listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers.
Presented by CMH Heli Skiing and Peak Performance.
The Low Pressure Podcast is sponsored by CMH Heli Skiing, where you can choose from 11 unique locations and experiences, including 4, 5, 6, and 7-day signature trips, the brand new single-day trips. You can do small groups with just you, 4 friends, and a guide, or the private and exclusive, where you get the whole place just to yourself. So find your next adventure at cmhheli.com. The Low Pressure Podcast is also sponsored by Peak Performance. There are many ways to make it down a mountain, but the best line is your line. And the adventure is there, so make it yours. Visit peakperformance.com and get the gear to unlock your free ride spirit.
Dance, monkey.
Dance, monkey, dance. All right. This is on, so talk, monkey, talk.
Talk, monkey.
Andrew, Chad.
Hi.
Good to have you on the show, man.
Appreciate it.
Good to hang out with you today. And
in our favorite spot.
Yeah, Golden, BC, the Champagne Powder capital of Canada, the official destination partner of the Low Pressure Podcast. We're in Glacier Mountain Lodge, I believe it's called.
I think so.
And I stayed here last year. We did a contest last year. It was like a 2 days, I think 2 nights, 3 days or something like that. I can't remember the exact contest, but here in Golden, you get a couple days of skiing, a couple of like Visa gift cards, meals.
I want to go on this contest.
Couple nights, yeah, enter it. And you get to stay right here in this hotel, and we're going to do it again.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, probably in the new year. So if you're listening to this, stay tuned. So probably going to do the exact same contest again.
Yeah, ski in, ski out.
Yeah, it was like I can, out that door right down the hall, I can throw a snowball and hit like the white tooth.
You could hit skiers. Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
I can hit the gondola.
Yep.
I have a good arm.
You're baseball.
Yeah, I'm baseball. You're right. You do get nervous. No, it's teasing. But yeah, it's amazing. So it's a really cool spot. And today's opening day. And there was pals.
It was a great day.
Yeah.
Had a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was good times.
We got an early up.
Yeah, thanks to Aaron and the marketing team here at Kicking Horse.
Yeah, appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, take some photos of like the greatest sunrises of any mountain I've ever been to.
The best sunrises
consistently.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah, every time I come, it's the same. And by the same, I mean like the consistency of how amazing it is.
Every single time.
Every time.
Yeah.
I've never been here and it's been like, meh. No.
Best memories of my life have been on this mountain, like super early in the morning. It's great.
Best memories of your life?
Or like of the ski career life.
I was going to say, wow. Okay,
I love this place.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet, hey.
Second home.
So for those of you who don't know who you are, for those listening, you are a photographer, ski photographer.
Ski photographer, yeah.
I got to know you, was it last year or the year before?
2 years before.
2 years before.
We've had a long relationship now.
Yeah, well, that's decent. But we met with Andy Brown from Golden at the Reposados, the taco shop, and I was regaling you with the story of I was smitten. I was smitten by a lovely female, and was like, well, I'm going to turn this into a good story. So I'm like, I just got back. I got to talk about this story, and it was good. And you were like, well, tell me how it was a cliffhanger. There was a cliffhanger.
And it took me a whole year to figure out what had happened.
Yeah, because I hadn't seen you and I forgot about it.
So I saw you last December here.
Yeah, and then the story, it just ended like it was like meh.
Yeah, totally anticlimactic.
100%.
But the wait was worth it.
So it was almost kind of better to leave it, right? It was like the sitcom or the adventure TV show.
Yep.
That ends and then doesn't get picked up for a new season, and you just end on the cliffhanger.
You were at a high note.
Yeah, just shut.
You're just cheesing.
Yeah, I'll just start doing that. People are like, yeah, man, he's fascinating, and I'll keep in their head, and every once in a while I'll think about it. Be like, oh, I wonder how that story ended up, and that keeps people thinking about me. It's a diabolical plan.
It's great.
I dig it. Instead of just talking at people on the internet. So you're a photographer.
Yep.
And then last year you were working with the Scott team, and we kind of reconnected here again.
It's always Golden with us.
Yeah, right. And then you were in Spain last year, and we were trying to get together.
Yep.
And unfortunately, your poor doggy was sick.
Dog got sick. I got sick. Pulled the plug on that trip,
Yeah.
but had a fun few days. Place is nuts.
Yeah. It was.
I've never seen anything like that.
No, I really wish I could go back again this year.
We should do it.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, we'll talk.
We've done a lot of like brainstorming and scheming and planning.
Well, I think that's one of the better trips is you can you fly to Barcelona, you just spend a few days in a sweet city, you drive 4 hours north, you go skiing, and then you get, if you plan it right, you get another couple days in Barcelona. So you get this like blend of sweet Spanish culture.
Or you do what I did
skiing.
last year and blast off to Switzerland for a few days.
Yeah,
and
that would have been, that looked fun.
That was good. It was expensive.
Yeah.
That trip was just as expensive as the rest of it. Especially when you're on the Canadian dollar. Like Switzerland is not cheap.
No, not on the peso.
And then the Canadian dollar. So I was in Verbier. I think the first we were walking by this place called The Shed. I think it's The Shed. It's a burger spot.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple of friends out on like the patio, which is kind of out on the stroll. Like, hey, what's going on? Come over. I'm hungry. So I sit down and order a burger and fries and a beer. And the guy's like, that's 45 euros. And I was like, no, just my burger. not separate bills. Separate bills. And he looks at me like, you're an idiot. Like, that's what the cost is. I'm like, are you kidding?
Yeah.
And then the exchange is $60 for a hamburger, some fries and a beer. And I was like, oh no. So then when I got back, I kind of had a rough idea of like, I'm in trouble.
Yep.
Like,
do a little work.
Oh yeah, like it was an expensive trip. I'm like, I need to paint a house or something. I think I need to start doing some extra work on the side. But like, I don't know. It is what it is. So I'm gonna try and stay in Canada as much as I can. Maybe do some road trips to the States. But even the States, like our dollar is so brutal, it's just so hard to travel.
I think it's like 74 cents right now.
70.
Is it?
Yeah, I looked the other day. I thought it was 70.
heartbreaking.
But even then,
Come to Whitefish. We're still cheap-ish.
right?
Yeah. Our beer's still cheap. Our food's still cheap.
Yeah, but it's because it's like 3% beer.
No, it's the fun beer.
What, 5.5?
That's Utah.
No, like American beer is usually like less.
No.
It's not?
No. Or like our trashy beer for sure.
Yeah, like Bud Lights and Coors
Yeah,
Lights
those
and
are like,
Miller Lights.
yeah, I haven't drank in a while, but
But I don't think your proper beer is 5.5, is it?
well, yeah, we make good beer.
All right.
God, we gotta get you out of Canada.
Yeah, I'm not a huge beer guy anyways. I like beer, but
That's fair.
who cares? Just,
Yeah,
just try-
we're capable people down in the States.
Yeah, of course you are. No,
we
absolutely.
can brew beer.
I never said I did. Why are you getting so defensive? But yeah, I'd like to go down and visit.
It's fun.
I'm thinking I'd like to do like a road. There's a few resorts I haven't been to yet. Haven't been to Sun Valley yet.
Sun Valley, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, when I was telling you, I was chatting with McKenna, and she's like, "Dude, calm on down. There's a lot of people here with like some really good episodes." And
Yeah.
then I haven't.
Let's go down with some groomer skis.
Yeah,
Just for groomers.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
In the sun.
Oh, yeah.
In the valley. I haven't been to Tahoe for a while. I haven't been to Utah for a while. Maybe Mammoth. Like, I should just van life it and do a full
Van life. Yeah.
Do a full mission.
Grand tour.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Well, ideas. Well, so you live in Whitefish,
I'm in Whitefish, yeah.
and you're telling me today that it's like you like it because it's a quick strike to Canada.
Yep. We've got pretty damn good access to things. It's like hour 45 to Fernie. It's 5 hours to Golden. 6.5 to Revelstoke, 4 to Nelson. So in that radius, like you've got some great skiing,
Yeah.
like world class.
Well, and you're good. You're close to Montana resorts too.
Yep. Well, kind of. It's actually, I think Big Sky is like 7 hours from us.
Oh, really?
It's farther for me to go to Big Sky than it is to go to Golden.
Not farther as the crow flies, but farther as like the roads drive.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to get there.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
And then
So like years, I would go down to Jackson. I knew a bunch of people that spent time in that region, and now that I've like been introduced to Canada like 6 years ago, I'm like, why would I go to Jackson? Why would I just come to Kicking Horse?
Jackson's sweet. Yeah.
Jackson's fun.
Yeah, it's true.
It's cute. It's cute. It's just like Kicking Horse is wild.
It is pretty sweet here, and there's
It
no
is.
one here.
Yeah.
Like, it was opening day today, and there was like a teeny tiny little regular corral. Wasn't full. Basically one bowl open today,
One bowl.
and we skied how many laps of it, and every one of them was fresh.
Yeah. And we waited, maybe 5 minutes at the latest?
No,
Yeah, not even that.
no, not even.
Yeah.
Like, it's just roll up and in and scoot.
It's the beauty of this place.
It's pretty sweet. It's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I think Calgary's going to show up tomorrow. It's Saturday.
You think so?
50-50.
I wonder.
But it's great because like the group that does come from Calgary really wants to ski here, and they're all ripping skiers.
Right.
So it's
I
like,
guess it's not like Whistler where it's like an hour and a half.
right.
Right. You get an hour and a half, you can be there. That's nothing. But you
Yeah,
have to,
you get all the city showing up there.
yeah, and you can come up for a day and then drive back kind of
Whereas
thing, right?
like Calgary, how many resorts do you pass before you get here?
Right.
So you've got all that low hanging fruit. And by the time you drive 3 hours here, it's like the dedicated group.
And it's a drive.
It's a drive.
Like depending on the conditions, it's
Still not as bad as like I-70. If you've ever gone to battle out there.
it's different. Here it's like weather, and you got to worry about the weather and the mountains. Down there it's just a little
Well,
bit
it's a
weather
bit of
mouse.
both, yeah.
Yeah, I've got stuff, but it's the
It's the 5 million people on the front range that
Yeah.
are all trying to go skiing at the same time.
Yeah, it's
up
wild.
one road.
yeah.
It's just-
I've been on it once, and didn't realize it was such a big thing until I started seeing like Wintry Mix, like Weird Foothills guy Alec Kaufman, who used to have that Wintry Mix podcast, just shit talking it like nonstop.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
Like I moved to Denver in 2012 or so, and you could still go up on the weekends. You could go up on a Friday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And by the time I left in 2018, like you were maybe skiing on a Tuesday. Maybe that was okay to go up there. But like Wednesday through Sunday, it was just chaos both ways.
Really?
Yeah, just heartbreaking.
That's a bummer.
Skiing became too cool. Everyone wanted to do it. Problems in the world, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of problems, but I don't think we're going to solve them here.
Oh, God, no. I hope
We
not.
can try. We can try. So, all right, let's get back to you. So you're living in Whitefish.
In Whitefish, yeah.
So you were kind of, we were kind of, so people on the show know that I don't really write a lot of questions down. And a lot of times, like, I'll know people for a long time.
Right.
And I will, like, make a conscious effort of not asking them things about themselves. So,
Yeah, I know.
because I'm saving it.
Every time I try to tell you a story, you're like, no. Please don't. Please don't. I was like, well, I want to tell you a story. You're like, come on.
let's keep it fresh. All right, so you were like, oh, I have a kind of a unique path into skiing, because you've only really been in the skiing industry, like
Yeah.
quote unquote industry. You said for like 6 years,
6 years, technically. I got a taste of it in college, though.
right? And why is that? Why now?
What do you mean, why now?
Like you're in your 30s, right?
Oh, yeah,
Why
yeah.
why did you start so late? Like what was it that like gave you that spark to get in? What's the origin story?
Ooh, I don't even know where to start with that one.
All right,
Well, let's like reverse all the way to. We'll give you like a little story background. Yeah.
All right, so
So I was born in Calgary. Lived there for
you're Canadian?
Yeah, dual citizen.
Oh, okay.
Born in Calgary.
That makes a lot more sense because
A little bit.
Because a lot of the times I'm like, well, the American guys are always coming up and back, and like sometimes they have athletes visas, sometimes they're just rich.
Yeah,
I'm like, I was always wondering what your reason was. Oh, so you're a
I've
halfie.
got the two passports.
Oh, okay, nice.
So I was born in Calgary, lived there for 7 years, got a good taste of skiing. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we moved down to Texas. So I spent
Why? Did your family work in oil?
energy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so-
Energy.
Energy. It's like
Oil.
the way those things work now. They're like the whole company structure is like renewable to oil.
Right,
They're in energy.
Yeah.
But dad was sick of the cold, essentially. Mm-hmm. He was a Canadian boy, went to school in Halifax,
Oh, yeah?
like lived in Calgary his whole life. He was like tired of the cold. And the Minnesota North Stars had just moved down to Dallas, and he was looking for a new place. So it was either like Denver, Dallas.
He moved because of the
Well, the North Stars moved there, and then like some of the Calgary Flames players moved down there, and so it became like he was like, okay, this is.
So
this
did
is
he
it.
know a lot of the hockey players?
My mom did. She was buddies with like Joe Newendike and that crew.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And so we moved down there. I was there from like 7 years old to 18, so all of high school, middle school.
Oh, yeah. So you grew up there.
Grew up
basically.
there. Yeah. So skiing was like 2 weeks a year, maybe. You get
Really?
a Christmas break.
And would you go at like Nikiska or Lake Louise or
Well,
Sunshine?
when I was
or
growing
something?
up, I think it was Louise. Well, I don't know. It was somewhere along.
COP.
I don't think I ever got to do COP.
Canada
I still want
Olympic
to do COP. But yeah, it was like, so Calgary and Whitefish have always had a connection. Mm-hmm. Calgary or Whitefish has been Calgary's Tijuana for years. Right.
Yeah.
Everyone comes down. The beer was cheaper. The food was cheap.
Right,
We've got
right.
a Costco. Cheese is cheap.
It's like Bellingham for Vancouver.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I believe my granddad had been in Whitefish in like the 60s. Dad came down on these party buses in the 80s. So they used to pick up, like they'd have 5 coach buses in Calgary. And they'd pick up a whole bunch of Calgarians. They'd drive them down to Whitefish to the resort. They drop them off for the weekend, and they just party their asses off for 2 days, and they get picked up and driven back home.
Right.
And Dad won't really like talk about these stories, but I'm assuming it was a good time.
You've been to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so we've always had this connection to Whitefish through that kind of experience from Calgary. So when we were down in Texas, rather than like the typical Texas vacation, which is to Colorado because it's a close flight, we would always come to Montana.
Right.
Which is like back then, like who the hell went to Montana?
Yeah, right. Backwoods.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
it's so far out there back then. And so growing up, my 2 weeks of skiing every winter would be in Whitefish. And I was in like ski school, got really lucky at like 10 years old, made a friend, Katie Hayes, still friends till this day.
She's a snowboarder?
No, she's just a local Whitefish girl.
Oh, right.
And then through her, I met a few other friends, and then like this whole network of local Whitefish kids. And that still is like my main group of friends, all kids that are born and raised there. And so like they taught me how to ski every winter because they, ski town kids, they're all great skiers.
Yeah.
I want to be friends with these people. So I have no choice but to figure out how to ski in my 2 weeks every year.
Right.
And so skiing like in high school, that was like peak mid 2000s ski culture when
it was rock.
Yeah. So like my ski memory is Johnny Mosley's 98 Olympic.
Changed my life.
Changed my life too.
Right.
I remember like, what the hell?
What
did
that?
he just do? This is crazy. And then
dinner roll.
Yeah. And then right after that was the 1080, right?
Yep.
And I remember I was like, I really want to get a pair of 1080s. This is the coolest shit in the world. My dad was like, and the classic dad, he was like, those are gay. And I was like, oh God. And then like the funny part about that story is like we fast forward all these years later, go to my sister's wedding, and who's the officiator for my sister's wedding? Gus Kenworthy.
No way.
And I like got this jab in like 15, 20 years later. I was like, Dad, those skis were pretty gay, weren't they? But he's got a silver medal from the Olympics. He was like, shut the fuck.
Yeah, and he's rich and famous. He's rich and famous now.
So,
and guess what he is?
Yeah, gay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And like,
who's laughing now,
yeah,
Dad?
so funny. And like fun things about Gus, like I've only known Gus through my sister's dinner parties.
Is he a Whitefish guy too?
No, he's Telluride.
Okay.
But like,
how does your sister know him?
She just has this like ability to befriend people. Her husband,
because I guess she was doing the same thing you were doing, is like the 2 weeks ski trips. So she was creating her own kind of network of
kind
friends,
of like she married a boy from Durango, Colorado, and Jeremy, my brother-in-law, would ski in Telluride Park with all those kids. So he knew Gus through that,
right?
And so Caitlin met Gus, and they had a good connection. And so like when we were all living in Denver, it was like myself, Caitlin down the road, and Gus was in a different part of town. I was like a skier, but I only knew Gus as dinner party Gus.
Right.
Which was sweet.
Yeah.
Like that side of Gus, I absolutely adore.
Right.
Yeah. I haven't skied with him. Would love to one day, but
yeah.
I'd rather just have dinner parties with Gus.
It's funny that you're in the same industry, but you'd have zero connection with each other because of it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, like we're friends because of my sister's dinner parties, which were fun back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like the 1080 came out, and then we had all of the magazines were there. You had like the Free Skier, Freeze, and Powder. And so in high school, I was just ripping out the magazines and like plastering them floor to ceiling on my walls. I was like, this culture is nuts. It's so far removed from what the world I was in Dallas. Like really cutthroat kind of like business culture.
Right.
Like really, you know. And so I always had this passion for skiing, but it was just like to the culture down there, stupid activity. It is a vacation activity. It's not actually a career or anything.
Right. It's just something you do with your family.
It's a recreational activity.
Right. It's not a lifestyle.
Yeah. And so then after high school, I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. Went to play soccer out there at a small little college. And then my like senior year, as all the kind of like student athletes know, we're pretty unqualified for the world because you spend all your time playing sports. And so senior year, the teachers are a little bit looser. I was at a small school, and they're like, let's give these kids some leniency. They can go get some internships. So I found this ski company out of Alameda, California. It was called Boone Skis. Boone. And Boone had a really cool idea. He had 3 skis, essentially, 3 different shapes, but like 12 different graphics available. So you could like pick and choose what graphic really spoke to you, and you put that on the ski.
So you could choose like 2 different graphics for the same pair? Like, give me one of those like blue lefts and give me a green right,
fun, for sure.
Right, and you can like mix and match your own.
Yeah, which like a funny thing about that. Remember Peter Wojnar from last year?
Yeah.
On our Scott trip last year, the two of us kept looking at each other and we're like, how do we know each other? How the hell? Like, when we came up with this theory, it was like Powder Week or something. And then I mentioned this company. He was like, you sold me skis when I was like 17.
Come on.
Yeah. So it was this wild connection. So I worked for a company there, and that was my first real taste in it. And that's when SIA was still going on in Denver.
Right.
So we got to go to Denver and just like raged our faces off. And I was like, this world's nuts.
Yeah.
Like, this is so far removed from reality.
I was having a conversation a couple days ago about how I kind of miss the trade shows.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a lot of the business done without being there, but you also miss out on so much of like just networking and meeting people and that kind of stuff.
That would have been great. Got into it right after all that ended.
Right.
So yeah, that was my taste. From college, I moved up to Whitefish for a couple of years.
Right.
Worked for the local nutrition company. Skied a little bit. And then moved down to Denver for the next 6 years to try to grow up a little bit.
Just to think, because you think that's what you have to do with your life.
Yeah.
When did photography come into it?
At the end of Denver.
And why? How? Like,
Heartbreak.
Were you taking heartbreak?
Yeah.
You had to like
End of a relationship.
Okay, and you had to like you had all this emotion.
Well, yeah.
You had all this
Yeah,
emotion in it. You start taking black and white photos of the world.
Oh, yeah.
It's your emo phase. Let's pick up a 35 mil camera and start taking pictures of like a one petaled flower and stuff like this.
Well, I was gonna think like, so, like yeah. So
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, broken heart.
Yeah.
End of a relationship.
Right.
Really adored this girl. Like, I would argue that like my outdoor career, because I was a city kid, right?
Right.
Through and through. My outdoor career has been shaped by these rad women in these cool experiences. So like, I took an avalanche class in Denver at one point, or up in the mountains. They talked about like digging people out. This is my first avalanche class. Like, I'm new to this shit. Digging people out, log roll, open the airway, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what does all that mean? Like, I just took this class on avalanches and you're talking about like log roll, airways.
Right.
I'm like, okay, so let's go take a wilderness first responder. Took a woofer. Girl in this class, Taylor, she's from Utah. She's skied at University of Alaska. Now she's a patroller at Alaska. Rad girl. First time I actually saw someone like really turn skis. I was like, this is sick. How do you do that? Like, I want to figure out this.
Right,
I've been on big dumb skis from like mid 2000s the whole time, and she's on racing skis. Like, fuck, how
Just railing.
yeah. So like, I didn't know that was possible.
Right.
But like, Taylor showed me the desert, and then like
The desert.
South Central Utah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're that's the beauty of Whitefish. We're like 5 hours closer to the desert than Canada is.
Right.
So we can just drive down there whenever we want. But like, got a great experience there, and then took a level 2 avalanche, and then after that I actually took my wilderness EMT, which is like wilderness medicine plus your EMT.
Oh wow! So you can be a ambulance driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was part of that like growth process, like trying to figure out what to do.
What am I doing with my life?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so sad.
Yeah, and I was like kind of on this guide track. Like, I kind of wanted to be a guide for a moment.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, and then I like kind of veered into patroller, and like I just kept getting denied in those directions, and like saw guide life in Colorado, and I was like, that was my view of guide life, not the Canadian guide life.
Where does the camera come in?
Oh yeah. So, anyways, EMT class.
I've been holding this story off. So I've been giving myself cliffhangers from you. I've been like telling you to stop telling me the story.
Okay. Well, it all bleeds into it. Right?
Yeah,
so it's like the avalanche classes to the EMT classes. Then I met like this wonderful girl from Hood River, Oregon, and Kate had I believe Kate was buddies with like Abe, who was just on the show.
Yeah, Abe Kislovitz.
Yeah, and there's two other twins, Caleb and someone.
Right. Yep.
They were all GoPro guys, right?
Yeah.
So Kate was buddies with them, and I get introduced to this whole new world of like characters, and they're all kiteboarders, and they all do this crazy stuff, and I'm like, this is cool.
You keep finding yourself in like these different little like extreme groups of people. Like,
Yeah.
almost like a tourist for like short periods of time. You know what I
I'm
mean?
like a long-time tourist.
That's cool.
And so through that relationship, like Kate would have a camera on her when we go travel around, and like the desert was a place to go, and she'd be taking these photos, and I'd look at them like, oh, that's cool. Like, how do you do this?
Right.
Like, how do you set up the camera? And so I like picked up a camera and started kind of tinkering with it. and like learning how to process images and all that kind of stuff. And then we broke up. And my like all that energy, however you want to put it, had to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I was like just good enough at the camera, just understood enough things about technically how they worked. So I was like, well, let's just pour this energy in this direction.
Right.
Let's just see what happens.
And did it start with skiing photography?
No, I don't think it. No, so at the end of Denver, Wild Time was there like 2012. They legalized weed. Every weekend there was like a new microbrewery popping up. Like mid-20s in Denver was chaos for me. Just a lot of booze, a lot of partying.
Right.
Like, yeah. So by the end of it, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Bought a van, stopped drinking, got in the van, went straight to Jackson Hole, took a photo workshop on how like action sports kind of worked.
Right.
And that was through a group called Summit Workshops. And that thing was nuts. Like you walked into that workshop and it was like Nat Geo people. It was Red Bull photographers. It was like editors of Sports Illustrated.
That were doing the coaching?
We were doing the coaching.
Right.
So I like walked into this environment where I could just ask any dumb question available. And I was so new. I remember them emailing me like, make sure you have questions for photographers. And I emailed them back. I was like, what do you actually ask photographers? Like, what are appropriate questions?
Yeah.
Like, I was that, green on this thing.
Right.
And so I took this workshop, and then I remember Corey Rich gave me this advice, and he was like, right now, your job is to go shoot everything.
Everything.
It doesn't matter what it is. Go into a coffee shop, ask if they need photos. Shoot, like, whatever it is. People, friends, dogs, like, figure this thing out. And so for the next 2 years, that's all I did.
Right.
I figured out how to get little jobs. I like built this little portfolio. And then in the past, I had this whole cycling career. I did triathlon and a whole bunch of other stuff.
How many lives have you lived?
Commitment issues, man. And so like friends from that world saw what I was up to.
And they're like, hey, we want to get some photos taken.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think about this?
Right.
And so it was one of those classics, just like put yourself out there, say yes to everything and see what happens.
Right.
And so I started shooting cycling, and there's this lovely couple they're down in like southern Arizona, like right on the border now. They picked me up for couple camps. I got to go to Mallorca, road bike there. Like it was really cool stuff. And so I started developing the camera skills there.
And you're like, this is a pretty good gig, this photography business.
Yeah, people are taking me around the world already, like a year into this, 2 years into
Right.
Like, all right. Like, why not?
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, you're like, just keep saying yes to shit.
Yeah.
And so the skiing kind of showed up like a year into it. I was like, okay, let's try ski photography. Like that's those Powder magazine photos on my wall in Dallas. Like
Right.
that shit was ingrained in me.
Right. It's just always in there. And
Yeah.
it's like your dream vision board without realizing what it was.
Yeah. It was a joke back then. I was like, this world's weird.
Yeah. I just think it's really cool. I
Yeah.
didn't think that was possible ever for someone like myself. Right.
And so, like, I took that workshop twice, 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And the second time, I connected with another group of girls in Jackson Hole. And one of them was from my EMT class. These girls would rope me up the Grand Teton. Like, I would just be dying my way up this 14,000-foot peak.
Like, dragging you out there?
Just dragging me. They take me on these huge tours. If you ever go on, like, a ski tour with a whole bunch of girls, it is the best thing in the world. Like, you are the most well-fed individual. They've got snacks for days. And so I was sitting on snacks for days.
I was like, where's this going? It's snacks.
There's snacks, man. Like,
So basically,
the tangents could keep going,
they're
but-
like, cool, we got this guy who's a photographer. It's not going to cost us a lot of money. He's pretty cool, and we'll get him where we need him to go, and we can get some photos.
No, they weren't even asking for photos. They were just roping me up shit, and I was taking photos the whole way.
And did you ask them that you wanted to take photos?
No,
Like,
they just wanted to kick my ass for a day.
oh,
Yeah, it was
all
great.
right.
But there was one night specifically, like, I was sitting at a bar while a friend's working, and she was like, what are you doing here? I was like, I don't know. She's like, it's nuking outside. Go skiing at Snow King. So in Jackson, Wyoming, they've got Snow King right there.
Right.
I was like, I didn't even know you could do that. So I got all my stuff, toured up a part of Snow King where there was a cat track that kind of like did the classic loop around.
Yeah.
Fresh patch of snow, and I had a strobe light and my camera and a remote trigger.
Yeah.
I was like,
Did you take yourself?
selfies, man.
Yeah.
Dude, you don't need athletes.
Jordan Manley used to do those, and like,
Steve Shannon got himself into Redbull Ilume with a selfie.
Yeah.
You don't need athletes. We can do it ourselves.
well, it helps. It helps. But yeah, like Jordan Manley has taken some of the greatest photos I've ever seen that were selfies. Like
Selfies.
like before aerial photos.
Yeah.
He was taking those like that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
the aerial perspective.
Yeah.
Anyways, carry on. So you're
So yeah,
setting up a
I
strobe.
setting up like strobe light, and I was informed by people that night ski photography was a terrible idea and it was a waste of time, and like that creative process. You
Told by people who have never attempted it, have never done
or
it.
it was like, you know, that mid 2000s crowd where strobe photography and skiing was the thing to do because the cameras couldn't do certain things,
Right.
and so it was played out or whatever. And so I'm sitting up there and I'm like trying to tinker and try to figure this out, and then like you're in that creative mindset.
So would
where,
you like skin up, do a shot, and look at it, think about it, set
Yeah.
it up, and do it differently,
yeah,
and then go ski?
But then I learned very quickly, like ski photography, you do a line and then that line's done, so you got to move it again. So like my third attempt, there was just a sliver of snow left. And I remember skiing down and like blew over my face. I was pressing the remote in my glove. And then I skied to my camera and looked at it and I was like, oh my God, it is possible.
It worked.
It worked. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever created. I'm like, okay.
And
This
there's
is a ton of fun.
You're like, no one's
No one's
around.
around.
No one's around to see it. You're like, oh man.
I think that's one of the best parts of photography is like there's so many times you're out there by yourself shooting Northern Lights or something and you get one that's just a banger and you're celebrating by yourself and you're in the woods and you're like, I'm screaming to myself like, this is the coolest shit. But there's no one to be there.
No one
You're like,
around.
that's one of the most beautiful parts of it. But yeah, got this shot and I was like, oh, this is sweet. Like we could do this. And so then like went up to Whitefish, just shot everything. I got linked up with this kid, Corey Seaman. We're still best friends till this day. Corey and I, we just went on this adventure together where it was just like shoot everything. And so the portfolio started building, and then I put myself in other situations. I went to a Japan trip with Tom Winter and Jeff Creco. And Jeff Creco is doing like a photo workshop.
He's a great
Oh, he's
photographer himself.
One of my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy's legendary. He taught me so much, and I still am like learning his lessons 6 years later.
Right.
But like, you know, build connections. You start, and that's how, from that first Japan trip, Tom introduced me to Andy Brown here in Golden, which started all of the Freeride World Tour stuff I've been on. And it's just like, keep saying yes to things, see what happens, put yourself in the situation. So like, figured it out, I think.
Mm-hmm. And is this your full-time job?
It is. I've got some like supplemental income back
Well,
at home, but
every
like, this
skier-
is where the
every-
passion.
every skier
everyone
does.
Yeah.
I mentioned house painting earlier. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I did this show for the first 8 years, and this was the side project. Mm-hmm. Right. So everybody's got
Yeah.
2 gigs in this industry, in this
Yeah.
community.
But it's definitely where my heart is for sure.
Yeah.
I'm like continue to be on the wildest adventures with people.
Right.
Yeah. Like last year, like we were on the Scott trip here in Golden shooting photos, and then Molly was there. This is my first time meeting Molly.
Molly Arbenino.
Yeah. And just a character. And I like absolutely adored this girl right away.
She's got this like magnetism about
She
her. Like,
does.
she's just like the nicest, sweetest, but also aloof at the same time.
Yep.
Like she's in her own head doing her own thing, but including you
Yep.
at the same time. You're like, what are we doing?
And so on that trip, I'm like, this girl I've never met before is a world tour athlete. I'm like, well, this sounds interesting. And at the time, when we were on the trip, tickets to Barcelona were like $500 Canadian.
When you were here
Yeah.
doing the Scotch shoot.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so it's
might
like,
as
well,
well.
interesting. Why don't I just book one to see what happens?
Right.
And like, I think McKenna was like, yeah, you should do it. See what happens.
Because you were there with the Scott team too. And
Yep.
you're like, hey, if I buy a ticket, maybe I'll show up. Do you want to?
Yeah, maybe we could do something. Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. The wheeling and dealing, right? So I think that might be like the subtext of a lot of this journey of yours.
Yeah.
I think maybe you're leaving out a little bit of like your ability to wheel and deal, because not everything just serendipitously happens like it does. Sometimes you got to work for it a little bit. Yes.
you gotta
no?
work for it a little bit.
Be
Yeah.
in the right place at the right time.
Right place, right
Put
time.
yourself in the right place at the
Yeah.
right time, expecting, hoping, planning on something to happen.
Yep.
Right.
But I think it's like, it's a creative mindset. It's being just
Open.
100% okay to fail.
And saying
like failure is
yes.
part of it. It's
Yeah.
written in the code.
And saying yes to everything. I love that
Yeah.
you brought that up a few times.
And like over the last handful of years, I've learned that like if I lose that emotion and I stop saying yes, you can just see the deterioration of everything. And so it's that that wave, like when that wave comes and it's feeling good and things are clicking, like you got to abuse it. You got to go as much as you can into that like passion project and just see what happens, because it'll lead you on the wildest adventures.
So are you someone with like few personal barriers for stuff like that? Like for myself, like reasons not to do things, right? Everybody's got a reason to not do something, like, oh, my dog, or I've got to maybe meet this person when they come into town next week, or maybe I don't have enough money right now, or whatever. Everyone can find an excuse or a reason to not do something. Yeah. How are you able to like push beyond those doubts or those reasons to like, you know, because like you're traveling to all these different places, right?
Yeah.
Like, stuff is expensive. And after a while it might be, you know. Yeah,
you'll eventually take a loss here and there, but I think the mentality is the last couple of years I've like been able to hang out with junior skiers a lot. A couple times at the Blanket, these kids are just like, there's 3 boys from Fernie and one's from Cranbrook, and these like full of energy. They're 19 and under. The world hasn't said no to them yet, right? They haven't learned those lessons. And I was at like a free ski comp here in Golden with a Whitefish kid, and he was explaining his line. He was like, oh, I'm going to go do this, this, and this. Yeah. I was like, well, what happens if this happens? And what about this? All like my jaded things. And he just looks at me and goes, yeah, Andrew, but like, what if I land it? I'm like, you mother shit. Like, I don't have an answer to that, because it's just so pure of an answer. Right. And it's that same childish mindset when it comes to
just the optimisms or like the positivity rather than.
You got to like look at it through an innocent eye, the world in an innocent eye, and just be like, well, what if it does work out? Right. Like, what's that gamble look like? And you think back on your experiences when you've done that, and how much more fun and exciting those were than versus saying, well,
and how much you learn too. Yeah. With if you get to a point where you're not ultra burned, right? Yeah, right. Like it doesn't go terribly sideways.
Yeah, but that's part of the game, right? You remember those just as well as like, I sat in a tent in Alaska for a week. This is my only time going skiing in Alaska. I sat in a tent for a week. I was like really excited
because of the weather.
Yeah. I'm like, cool.
Well, that happens. Like, weather, you can't do anything about.
But that's the gamble.
Right.
Like,
true.
You put yourself out there. Sometimes it doesn't work. But what if it does?
But then also, though, sitting in a tent for a week in Alaska is a cool story to tell. You just told that onto a podcast in the future, so it was valuable in some way. Yeah. And I'm sure you read some books, and you got to get to know the people that you're on the trip with quite well.
No books. We were trying to throw a mutiny against the guides at one point. It was great.
What?
Yeah, because we didn't get cake one night. We were really upset about it. We ran out of booze. Right. We were low on weed. And then the cake didn't show up one night.
You just had like a birthday cake or just random cake
just like
for dessert?
Cake for dessert.
Okay.
And so we like childishly threw a mutiny and like kept the guides up until 2 a.m. by throwing snowballs at them. Right. We're all really good friends, but that was my experience in Alaska. One and done.
How did that have to do with books? No books?
There were no books on the trip.
No one brought a book?
No.
You're not drinking. Okay.
No. We were there to ski,
right?
Not read books in tents.
Right. But
it was 1 week. It wasn't like a long trip.
That's fair. But I've never been to Alaska, but even I would know that you don't necessarily, like, you've watched the MSP movies back in the day and the TGR movies back in the day.
They just down where they have
forever. Where you have like an 8-minute segment of them like.
Oh yeah, I just watched Claim the other night.
Like, look at McConkey's Saucer Boy. Yeah. That came out of sitting around doing nothing in Alaska waiting for weather.
It's like having a mutiny against your guides, something to do. You gotta get creative out there. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just saying yes to weird things and being okay with it. Like, I want to go to Europe this winter.
Me too.
That's my goal. I don't know who to go with. I really need someone that's like an athlete, a writer, maybe if it's unused writing skill, like someone just like to go on a trip with. But I can't guarantee it's going to work. Right. Are we going to ask for a budget? Remember,
who's gonna give that?
Who's got budget?
Who's got budget out there?
Who's got budget? Hashtag ski brand.
Hashtag ski brand. Hashtag no budget. Hashtag
yeah. So it's like
things are tight right now. Hashtag call me in the new year.
But yeah, that's kind of the thing. You're like probably not gonna get much budget for a trip like that. So you're either doing this thing on spec. So what's the point? Like, what are you gonna do?
Right, you got to turn it into something for yourself.
I think you just turn it into a passion project of like what it's like to travel through Europe for skiing. Because for me as someone who's not, you know, from a mountain town, not ski industry really. Like I see skiing as the travel aspect. Those were the best parts of the videos, is like when they were bumping around on trains and doing dumb things.
Right.
Now it's like,
well, that's kind of how you've lived your life, though.
Yeah.
You're a bit of a nomad.
Yeah, I don't relate to the Alaska segments as much.
Right.
Because that's just so far removed. But like, you look at some of my photos and like I love powder photos. Like that Jeff Creco influence is still there 100%. I love when it's just exploding powder over people's faces.
Right.
Because everyone in Dallas or everyone across the country can relate to that. They're going up to ski powder.
That's the ultimate goal, right? It's everybody's ultimate goal.
Yeah. Not like some big Alaska spine.
Right. Like the first major and still resurrected ski magazine ever.
Yeah.
Powder. Right?
Yeah.
It's the dream.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Making turns in fun snow.
That's why we all do it.
Yeah. And so that's where my influences are. And then, like, yeah, that's kind of the gamble on a trip like that.
Right. So it's like, you know, a lot of us do. I just needed, like, for speaking of like where you ended up with, you know, creative endeavors, like I ended up doing this show because I wanted to be closer to this thing that I loved.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't good enough to be in those magazines, right? I didn't have those connections. I did have a lot of barriers.
Mm-hmm.
I need to work. I have a restaurant job. I need to do this. The reason I had a restaurant job so I could ski every day.
Right.
But it didn't really allow. Well, it did. Yeah, it allowed for a bit of travel here and there. But you know, I wanted to do what they were doing. I was watching these movies, and I was like, I have every single powder magazine for 20 years under my house that I
still
bought.
have stacks of them.
Yeah, I bought them from the newsstand because I didn't want them to put the sticker on the magazine and mail them to me and have them mess up the cover. So instead of spending like, you know, $9 or $7 for the entire volume, I'd spend $7 for each individual issue.
Yep.
The most recent that just came back was 17. I'm like, welcome back, Powder, I think. But you know what I mean? But I wanted to, the same sort of thing. I wanted to be a part of it. So I had to figure it out. And it was just one of those things that was just kind of an epiphany moment. I was like, oh, I could do that. Maybe that's the way I could end up doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's cool that you kind of are doing that suits your needs.
Yeah.
Right? This is how it's going to work for me.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting.
Yeah. And like my favorite shoots are when I have the keys to the Lambo and we just can get to go have fun. Like what we were talking about earlier, like it was our first time shooting together today, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to figure each other out, like how this works.
There's a big dynamic. Let's talk about that because there's a big dynamic between like everybody skis a different way.
Yeah.
Everybody shoots a different way.
Yeah.
And that's just like the way I ski, and that's just the way you take photos. And then you combine personalities and styles and the way people work, right? And it gets even further because like you were talking to me like, all right, what do you want to do? I'm like, dude, just tell me what I got to do and I'll do my best to do it.
You want to be told.
Right.
And so like,
and then there's people like that get, I'm like, I haven't done a ton of shooting. I've done little bits and pieces there, but it's always just like a little bit of something for like a promotional material for a resort.
Right.
Or
you're sinking like one turns here and there.
Or it just happened to be with a friend and we're skinning around and we're just skiing. We're not going to shoot because when they are going to go to shoot, they're going to pick the person who they know is going to be valuable to shoot.
Right.
The type of person that has sponsors or has a name or will have connection that will, you know, if you see two good photos side by side, say you're a magazine editor or something, and I would think this is the case. You have two equally impressive photos. Yeah. One is no name guy and one is big name guy with this connected to this brand that maybe advertises in that magazine. Which one do you think is going to end up on the cover? That one, right?
I don't know. Actually, this year's been different because I got a unnamed buddy, Danger Davidson. Guy's name is Danger Davidson.
Yeah.
And Ski Journal was kind enough to put like right hidden in his athlete thing as Danger Davidson.
Right.
But he was in Forecast and Ski Journal this year, 2 pages. Unnamed guy.
Interesting, because that's how I think it used to be. Maybe it's like
that's still fun though, right? Like,
and I'm just
that gets the people excited.
Yeah,
like
I think
the random guys. They're like, "Who's this Danger Davidson?" Like,
right?
Who's this guy?
But yeah, I guess both things can be true at the same time. It just depends on who and what the circumstance is. But like I'm saying, my point was, when I'm shooting, if I've ever been out shooting with somebody, you know, you can go out with me and I'll be an auxiliary to the guy you're gonna shoot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh hey, while you're up there, maybe shoot that line, right?
Right.
It's secondary.
Well, it's fun to go with 2 other athletes.
Auxiliary,
It's a little bit safer.
right? Whereas if you're like say you're up here in Golden, right?
Yeah.
And let's say we were talking about we were talking about Stan Ray. You went skiing with him the other day. Stan's in town and I'm in town, and you got one seat in the heli. You choose Stan. Do you know what I mean? Like, because
and then we're gonna talk about golf for like 4 hours on the helicopter.
Well,
It'll be
yeah,
a great
exactly.
time.
But you know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Right. And regardless of whatever, you're gonna go with the guy who's put in that position, right? So, and that's the thing. It kind of leads back to where I had to try and make myself a part of this sort of thing. So then back to like, you know, figuring out how people work. For me, I've always just been like, I'm just here in the background.
Right.
Like maybe I had one photo published. Guy Fatal did it. I told you about it today. It was here in Golden with like the crazy snow stars and stuff.
Oh, I love his images. They're so fun.
And we were like, wow, look at that. That's really cool. And I'm like, hey, there's a patch of snow right there. He's like, yeah, you think you can ski it? I'm like, all right, cool. And then, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
Right. That's how that happens.
Exactly.
It's not like, all right, let's go shoot and let's go do this and that and the other thing. It's not like
Those great images, you're not planning for.
Sometimes
Things just fluke in your favor.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right. But what I'm saying is my point is like, I've just always kind of been that guy that's there.
Yeah.
Just as a bonus, as an extra. You know what I mean? A fill in. So I don't, and I'm always the kind of person that doesn't want to like step on any toes. I'm just there to assist or be there, right? So I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Just tell me where you want to go, right? So in my mind, I revere the photographer's eye so much because, I haven't had many photographers on the show in the last couple of years. So this is nice. This is my favorite kind of thing is the creative talk.
Right.
Is I like having them on because of the way they approach their craft and the way that they see their creativity and the way they see a slope and a skier. And I've said this many times, you can look at a Jordan Manley photo and that's a Jordan Manley photo.
Right.
Without even reading it. You just know. That's a Blake Jorgensen photo.
Yeah.
That's a Lee Cohen photo.
Yeah.
You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's like, you know, you can look and just know.
Yeah.
Right? So in my mind, when you're up on the hill, right, there's a lot of good like skier photographer combos as well. There's many of those that just work with each other. But I'm just like, all right, you know what you're doing. You know how you see things. Mm-hmm. So tell me where you want me to be within this vision of yours.
Right.
That's how I would see it, right?
Yeah. And I think there's plenty of times, like situations where that works perfect. Like if it's a one-turn wonder, I hate doing one-turn wonders. Like it just ruins me inside.
The parking lot snowbank.
Yeah,
photo.
just like the one piece of snow up there where there's I get it. It's a marketing piece. They look gorgeous, blah blah blah. But I like making my friends ski. I want you guys to have like 4 and 5 turns.
Right.
And we're shooting all 4 and 5 turns.
Yeah.
Like that's the most fun because then you get in a groove. I get to like chase you around a little bit. I'm not really concerned about like if it's perfect because I'm in like a powder example. If someone's skiing at me, I'm going to shoot a lot of it, but I'm really hoping something fluky goes on because then that'll separate it from the rest of the images.
Right.
Like just the right pole plant, the right like goggle frame. That's the best for me. You can't plan that stuff.
Right.
You put yourself in the best position to make that happen. But
so your style is like
I want the skier to have more fun.
maybe not just winging it, but just see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just see what the universe provides for us, right?
Yeah.
Let's put ourselves
We're
in
gonna
a position for success
in
and
the
then
best possible position.
Right.
And then we'll just see what happens.
Right.
And like blanket last week. 3 days, kind of bullshit snow. Then we got like 50 centimeters of the most blower British Columbia snow I've ever skied. And I didn't really have to work too hard. We just kind of pointed the camera uphill. People skied, had a great time. And like things happened.
Right.
And all it was is just like me putting myself in a situation and like had a great group of people in front of me. And like the expectation, the bar was so low that everything was great. And then it just happened to be like really good on some images.
Right.
Like, oh, this is unique.
Right. And you just throw a bunch of stuff into the funnel and see what pops out the other end, right?
Yeah.
And that's interesting because like I was just talking about like photographers' styles, right? So would you be able to explain, or would you be able to think that you have a certain style? Like if you look at a bunch of your images, it'll eventually over time develop where you're like, oh yeah, I can see the running theme, right?
Yeah.
But
It's
like,
getting there.
in your mind, is it like we'll just see what happens? Is that the style? But I guess that's kind of more of like the motive, or the process is, let's see what happens, but not necessarily how it ends up on the image.
Yeah, like my goals, we're going to create the best scenario available to create in. Mm-hmm. We did this trip to Jackson Hole a few years ago for the Arc'teryx Academy, and they had a photo shootout.
Oh, did you do one of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Jackson. And it was really funny because I was nervous, and I texted a guy. I was like, hey guy, I've seen you do well in these kind of competitions.
Won the first one he ever entered in.
I've seen you do well in these things. Like, hey, do you have any tips? And he was like, I wish I could, but I just got invited last night, so I'll be there. I was like, shit.
Oh no.
Okay.
How did you do in that one?
It was chaos. It was so much fun. So they gave us $700 to get from Whitefish, Montana to Jackson, Wyoming, stay there for a week. Mm-hmm. That money runs out night one, essentially. Right. So I had to get 2 friends down there, hotel for a week, blah, blah, blah. So we convinced the True Gear to give us some cash and some outfits. And I was like, this is kind of funny. I'm going to do this entire shoot in a competitor's clothing. And then we get to
True Gear at the Arc'teryx.
Yeah, at the Arc'teryx.
Right.
And then I get to the pre-meeting, and I'm listening to everyone talk, all the other groups talk about what they're going to get into, and everyone's got these like elaborate kind of like plans, and like we don't know Jackson, Wyoming at all. We're like 8 hours away. Why would we go to Jackson? And so at the end of the meeting, I'm looking at my buddies. I'm like, we're going for bangers. That's all we're going to do. We're just going to put ourselves in a position to where we get the best bangers possible. And for the first 3 days, we had 1 photo that was acceptable. But we spent the rest of the time just dicking around in Jackson. And so everyone else was like working really hard, like making these. And
was it like 3 days? Like, we're giving up?
Well, no, we had a 4-day window, but there was a storm on the last day. Mm-hmm. And we had an early up on the last day. So I was like, that's in the bag. We're good there. The rest of it, I don't know what we're going to do. So
So you didn't have a theme or anything?
We had a story. In the meeting, I threw it away because I was like, everyone else has a story. Why are we going to copy them on stories? Like,
right.
Let's just make this chaos. And so, like, we were at the bar at like 11 a.m. the next morning, like shooting photos in a bar. Like, I just let these kids loose. We just had the most fun we could in that 4 days, and that was the environment I was trying to create. It was like, whatever you guys want to do. You just want to like dick around for a day, let's dick around for a day. If we want to go ski, let's ski a few laps. Like, and so we let up, we got this POW day. And then from that POW day, we like got enough images from it. But then I needed go back to that Snow King night where I took that selfie. I was like, what if we went up to Snow King at the very end of this trip and shot some more photos? And they were into it. And so we went up to Snow King, and then at the time, just before, Arc'teryx did this ad campaign where they brought sheets up to the mountain and some strobes, and they did like running people, and it was kind of studio, kind of outdoorsy. And so my first photo in the slideshow was just mocking that. And so there's a whole bunch of Arc'teryx people in like the slideshow group.
Right.
And they were laughing. They got a good kick out of that because it was so poorly done. Like I forgot the big bed sheet, so we did like a towel of this girl walking in front of it. Anyways, we stayed up there and we were shooting photos, and we had like a 12 o'clock cutoff on our permit. And like we're trying to do strobe at night again, and I'm trying all different angles, some gels, like trying to make it moody. And Corey was like, hey, I got an idea. I was like, cool, let's do this. So he grabs my strobe, like a nice kind of studio strobe, straps it to his backpack, points it right down on his nuts, hikes up there and skis 1 line and makes 1 turn. And I was spraying and praying this whole thing. And I saw in camera at the moment that
So it's on his back?
No, it's like right on his chest.
Oh, it's like
pointing straight down.
Like a baby Bjorn?
Yeah, and this is exactly. And this is that kind of like creative thing where like from dog walks, I'd stick flashlights in snow, like just to see what light would do in snow, kind of deal.
Right.
And I remember he skied down, and I saw something flash in the camera as that frame went by, and then I like immediately chimped the camera. I was like, ooh, I think something weird just happened. So I looked, and there was just 1 frame where like Corey was in a perfect spot. The strobe was down into the snow, bouncing back up at him, so it illuminated his goggles. The frame was clean. There was completely black behind him. I was like, yo, you guys should check this one out. Like, I've never seen this before. And that was just like part of that trip where we created this environment
Right.
where things like that could happen. And like that was an image that would turn into a backcountry cover. It got me to a finalist in the Redbull Ilume, the previous edition, in the raw category, which was like my favorite because it's uncolor corrected. You just take the image from the camera
And send it to them.
submit it to them.
Right.
And so it was good to go as is. And it was just like this wonderful moment because we created this environment to where like failure was acceptable. We knew it was possible, but we were like, well, what if it works out?
It's an interesting. I love how it's full circle too. Back to Snow King.
Yeah, Snow King.
Right to where
Girls in Jackson.
Right to where it kind
getting
of
my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's kind of how you see it. It's like, well, I enjoy this. Something's gonna happen. Let's make the best out of it. But like the not knowing, zero expectations. That's
it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. Like I always say, like you'll never ever meet an expectation ever. The best nights of my life have been with just spontaneous things have happened.
Yep.
Like when you're going out with your buddies, like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to do this. No, it never happens that way. But when you're just in a right place at the right time with the right people, there's that magic dust that gets sprinkled. And the craziest, wildest, most fun things happen. Those are the best nights of your life because you don't have any expectations.
You ride that wave as long as you can.
And that seems to me like how you approach your art or photography, which is wild. I haven't really heard that point of view from anyone before, and I find it really refreshing, but also terrifying.
Like the Scott shoot last year, we've got a set thing of things to do, right?
Right. You need because
head to toe.
Yeah, because
like,
it's a product list,
it's
right?
A product
so that's a commercial shoot, right? That would be different where you know you're getting paid to do a job. Okay, I need to get these ones, and then.
But I find those so much harder to do than the ones that we were just winging it.
Well, it's because when you're just winging it, that's exactly what you're doing. You don't have any plans. You're just like, I'll see what happens, right?
But you can't tell a marketing person, be like, hey, we're just going to wing this one.
Well, you can't because you need a specific shots.
But we did that in Jackson. We were like, hey, we'll give you some photos. We'll give you whatever we do. And True was like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. And they're still using some of the images because it was just chaotic what we got up to.
Interesting. And I would like to say probably it's a testament to maybe your personal abilities as a photographer, right? To go up and wing it and be like, whatever, we'll just see what happens. Yeah. Right. So you got to have some good technical skill and a good eye and the ability to capture those moments, those unexpected flash in the pan moments, right? You have to be able to get them. Yeah.
But that's like the cameras, it's just a technical skill set. Like it's a science-based art, right? It's pretty straightforward. You set it up in a certain way.
Yes and no. Yes and no. You're downplaying it here, but yes and no. Like I know a lot of people that have cameras. Yeah. And they suck. They just can't do it. I know people that have cameras on their phone. I'm like, hey, they're like taking pictures of stuff. I'm like, do you know if you moved it there? Like 3 inches.
Well, you saw my cell phone photo today. It's horrendous.
Which one?
Of me trying to do like a pano of the skis and the mountain. Like I can't use a cell phone to shoot photos. Right. It's terrible.
Yeah, but whatever.
I need my big safety blanket camera.
But that's fair too. But what I'm saying is like you got to be good to be lucky.
Got to be good to be lucky.
Right? Yeah. In order to be lucky, you got to be.
You got to be dumb to be lucky too. You got to be willing to try.
Yes.
It's like kind of like that kid, and he was like, "Well, what if it works out? What if I land it?"
Right.
And you're like, you've got to carry that mentality into it. Like, well, shit, yeah. What if like going to Europe with someone and traveling around and making a cool coffee table book with some words? What if that actually worked out?
Right.
Yeah. Or we could just spend a bunch of money and waste time.
Yeah.
50-50.
Go eat some pizza in Italy or something like that.
God forbid you have a great trip and.
Well, that's the whole thing about traveling too, right? Is like one of the reasons I this podcast also isn't just because I wanted to be part of the ski. I wanted to travel. I've always liked to travel.
Yeah.
So it's my excuse to get things for cheap or for free or to have people invite me out to do things. Right. Like I started this in my mid-30s. This show. Right. I'm like I wish I had done it 15 years before, but it is what it is, right? And it's cool conversations, and this is why I like this show so much, is because I get to talk to so many different people on the air, but also the conversations we have before And then after, in our case, for the last couple of years, or on the chairlift or whatever, now anytime we have a conversation, I'll be like, yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah.
instead of shutting it down.
Well, it took us 2 years to like ski laps together. So we got there.
Yeah, that's true too. We always meet up here. Like, we didn't ski in Spain.
No, just coffee shops, you and I.
I didn't even see you in Spain, I don't think.
I think one night.
We were there the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, that trip was just,
Yeah,
that's why I want to go back so bad. Cause I feel like
You need a rebate.
I need a rebate. That was a heartbreaker. So
Right.
like, it was part of the game.
Yeah, interesting. But yeah, like it's a cool. I really like this perspective of yours because it's different from most. You know, most people are like, I need to do this and I want to do this and I have the plans and expectations and then, you know, I'm going to do this and I'm working on. And you're just like, yeah, fuck it.
Well, there's like there is some there are some plans. There is some like structure to it.
Right.
But like
but it's succeeding, right? Like I said, like you go like Ski Journal, they were talking about Redbull Ilume.
Yeah.
Right. You're in couple shots in forecast this season as well.
Yeah, it's been a great fall.
Right.
Yeah. Like the Ilume image this year was one of my favorites.
Which one was that?
It's a kid getting carted off the side of a hill in Fernie at a bike race. He's a 14-year-old kid, broke his leg. And it was like...
Capitalizing on someone else's pain. Huh?
Well, that was the best part.
And he's a minor.
He's a minor. Well, so there's so many fun things about that one. But like, he held up the track that day. They had to carry him down the track.
Right.
And I'm watching this kid, like the crew come down and I can hear patrol. They weren't stiff. They weren't like, there was jokes. There was laughing going on. I was like, okay, it's not like a dire situation.
Right.
So the kid
No
comes
cold
by.
blue. Yeah.
So the kid comes by. He's got his like whatever nitrous or whatever you guys put up on
Funny
for
gas.
faces here.
Yeah. Laughing gas.
And like I have my camera ready and I'm like, ooh, I wonder. And he caught eyes with me and he just threw up this little shaka. And he's got his like gas mask on the side. And I snapped a few photos and like someone around me was like, are you really gonna take a photo of this? I was like, absolutely. Let's just see what happens.
Right?
Yeah. And so I got this photo and then we like went down the track after that. We beat him down and ran into his mom. Talked to his mom for a moment. Like, yeah, he's fine. He'll be down shortly.
Can you sign this release form, please?
Well, that was the best part. It was like when I was submitting it, I was reading the instructions again, or the rules. I was like, oh shit, I didn't do any of this. So I tracked down mom, got her number, texted her all this information. I was like, I'm going to submit this photo. It's of your son. I need permission from you, blah, blah, blah. But please don't tell him a thing. So we kept this thing a secret from him for like since July until a few weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
So this kid has no idea what's going on. And then he gets like tagged in Redbull Ilume stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, congrats, by the way. Like, really helped me out there. But that's one of my favorites because it's some young kid in a ski town and he's in this like cool competition. And then like all the Fernie patrollers are stoked on it because they're part of this. And like, for me is like, there's nothing in the image for me, but the people involved was the most important part.
Right.
Like that's the coolest part.
Right.
And that was some of those Molly photos that ended up in Ski Journal. It's like the ones that were there, the most candid, authentic Molly photos, because it was just like me dicking around with the camera, just pointing in her face randomly.
Right.
And she just gave up at one point. She's like, well, this kid will just shoot photos of me all the time, like whatever. And so you can get these really fun smiles out of people.
Once you get
like,
comfortable with someone,
yeah,
right?
once you break that barrier. Yeah. And
you're just a part of the furniture with the camera.
Yeah. And you start seeing these cheeky little smiles and like the grins get bigger and then it's just like you see him in the magazine. You're like, yeah, that's how I see Molly. That's our relationship 100%. And so that's a whole other side of it. I'm like trying to really nail down these relationships with people. And so you can get these really fun images that they wouldn't let anyone else have.
Right.
Versus like the standard stock portrait, like, you know.
Right. The LinkedIn profile photo.
Like
Facebook
the one in
profile photo.
Ski Journal this year, like Molly's got a big tuft of hair over her face and it kind of looks like she's missing a tooth because of it.
That's
you know,
very
like,
Molly. Just
it's like she's checking
chaotic.
over her shoulder because they snuck up on her at face check here. I was like, hey, you're kind of cute. What's your name? And she turns around. I'm like, what? Who's this idiot? And I just snapped a bunch of photos right as she recognized me. And I'm like, yeah. So those are the fun ones. Those are the best ones.
That's cool.
That's what I'm chasing a lot this year.
It's just like, the
People of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Although I just spent a week with like Stan and Chris Rubens and Jordy. And I didn't get a single photo, like appropriate photo of them.
No, because they're three rock solid. They're solid gold beauties, those boys.
Just beautiful
solid
people.
gold
Beautiful.
beauties. Just good Canadian kids who are all just like the nicest, like fun-loving, just chill, good go with the flow, happy-go-lucky dudes that you probably just were laughing too hard to take photos.
Yep, 100%. I was there to actually really when I figured out Stan was there, I was like, I'm getting a golf lesson from Stan. I don't care it'll be fun to ski with him, but let's get a golf lesson.
Stan and his golf.
He's good.
He says so.
Oh, he's good.
I know. He chats about. He loves it. He talks about golf all the time. When we walk dogs,
4 days.
He talks about golf all the time.
I'm always like, every time I'm with a new pro, my question is like, "What's your least favorite part about shooting?" And I'm like, what part of this experience do you despise? Because I'm always trying to figure out how to like eliminate that from experience.
Right.
And
Interesting.
Yeah. So like, I think Jordy was like feeling uninspired by terrain, and so that's kind of that photographer athlete trying to like make something uninspiring kind of fun. Mm-hmm. 4 days with Stan, didn't ask him that question. You know what we talked about?
Golf.
What kind of clubs do you play in? How do you play this shot? That was so dumb.
Yeah, but
Bro crush at the end of that one.
But good times, right?
Yeah. But that's our connection, right? Like, I want to go shoot photos of Stan golfing now. I think we would have a ton of fun in that world.
And that was kind of my next question is like, he'd love that too, because that's how he gets his golf pass.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to post once a week for the Whistler Golf Course.
Yeah. Got to keep that dream alive.
Right? So he may as well take care of you for a couple rounds. Just exchange him a couple like buddy rounds or member guest pass rounds. Be like, look, we'll go for a couple rounds. I'll take a bunch of photos, and then pay for my golf. I was going to ask you that. There was like outside of skiing, what kind of interests you with like photography, but apparently golf.
I haven't actually tried it too hard yet.
Anything else yet?
No, I haven't really tried golf yet.
Oh,
I'm like
the photos or golfing?
The photos.
Oh, right.
Yeah, no, I wasted enough time the last 2 years on that.
Do you think there would be less chance for that magic moment within golf than within skiing? Just because there's just so much going on in skiing, and golf is a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more predictable.
I don't know. I think that world is still fighting its image of being that upper class, like wealthy sport. But there's a whole side of it where you're getting like big hip hop stars. You're getting this like kind of underground culture of golf where it's kind of like not degenerate, but it's just like
compared to what the image of it is. Right?
Yeah. Like people, the Whitefish golf course, sleeveless t-shirt, shorts, game on.
Right.
That would be fun to capture that side of it. Like it's just the cult, like that kind of subculture.
You gotta start getting invited to like the ski company golf tournaments, like the TGR golf tournaments.
Oh,
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They used to do this. TJ Schiller used to do the Sarah Burke Invitational, which got loose.
Dude, I've learned a lot. There's a lot of closet golfers in the ski world.
Yeah, I
They
think
don't really admit to it.
I think Torrin is a golfer too.
Yeah, I learned Johnny Collison was a golfer this year.
Is he?
Yeah.
Huh.
Rode bikes with him and Whitefish this year. Who else? Yeah, it's a cast of characters. I think McKenna's into it.
Maybe.
Yeah, like the whole gang is like got this, because all of the best ski towns, all of the best mountain biking destinations happen to have great golf.
Yeah, it's true.
So you might as well like pick up another sport, and it's the same like the Whitefish golf scene, same thing as the ski scene. It's the same four buddies dicking around in the woods for 4 hours.
You know what's funny?
That's all it is.
You got a foursome or a chairlift.
Yeah.
Right? Like I always say, on a POW day, you just need 3 other dudes, just enough for one four pack.
Yep. That's your limit.
That's perfect.
You can't do 2 lifts.
No, you can't. Unless if there's a bunch of like triple chairs, whatever, you make it work. But there's usually where you go, there's like that 4-pack.
So it's the same in the summertime. You're still
I never thought about that. I love that. I love that.
Doing the same. Like you're just chirping away.
Yeah.
No one's good at it. Like the amount of time it takes to be mediocre is just pathetic.
Yeah, I know.
But
that's why I never thought of that comparison of like the chairlift and the golf foursome.
You've removed the fast action. You're just there to talk,
right? And that's what skiing is to me. Is like people say no friends on a POW day. I think that's the stupidest thing ever. I'm like,
no waiting on friends on a POW day.
You need the right friends on a POW day.
Yeah,
and then you have the best POW day ever.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, just no waiting on them. If someone's gonna be a little snow queen back there in the parking lot and like take their sweet time.
Yeah. But that person doesn't make the cut.
Yeah.
Right, the person won't make the cut.
Yeah,
right. If someone like eats shit, and you wait at the bottom for a little bit,
Yeah,
then you get on the gondola. And
today,
yeah, that's right.
We had this great line lined up. I was skiing in front of the GoPro. And then a sniper took me out, and Mark's just like,
Whatever. We were just standing there, and you're like, I got the GoPro on. Let's go. I'll just ski behind you because it was fresh. It was nice. We're there doing something for the resort, and then you just got.
I made 3 turns, got caught.
Yeah, and you're
Tomahawk.
you were just kind of above me on the slope, and you just
Yeah.
cloud of smoke. I'm like, whoa! I could hear me on the GoPro going, whoa! I'm like, you all right? Yeah. And then you're starting to dig for your ski, and I was like, oh,
I'll send you. Go have fun.
You're
I'll
quick.
see you in
You're
a
like,
little
I'm
bit.
like, oh, okay. And my plan was just to come around the back and just come down and help you find your ski. And then we're on the chair. I'm like, has he got a ski on?
Yeah.
He's standing there. We're like, hey, Andrew. I'm like, oh, he's got 2 skis on. I'm like, all right, where do you want us to go?
And the next shot was great. Turns out great.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that was a fun day, man. And that's I'm like that we had this conversation. I'm starving, so we should probably go get some food.
Yeah, let's do that.
And I
again.
really like this point of view of yours of like your style of shooting or your not style or whatever it is. I just like your ethos towards your craft and like how you like to take photos and how you like to see the images kind of develop.
Yeah, well, it's part of that. Like, what's your least favorite part about shooting photos?
Right.
Let's eliminate that.
Right.
A lot of it's just like, let's make this experience as fun as possible.
Mm-hmm. And it disarms the athlete if it's someone you haven't shot with before.
Right.
Makes things a little looser. But
yeah. And then you after a few laps, you kind of figure out what people are up to, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and then you can like piece it together. And
it's not quite guerrilla photography. Like a lot of the best photos I've ever taken. Like I really enjoy photography, but I'm not great. I need to take a course like what you did because there's a few missing pieces. Right. But a lot of the best photos I've ever taken, I've just been in a place and been like, oh, and I've grabbed a camera.
Yeah.
Or I've just been like, oh, you know, it's rarely when I go out to try and shoot something. It's always when I'm like seeing and I'm like, oh, where's the camera? Where is it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of my style is like trips to Europe.
Just be available.
I will have my camera at all times. I will shoot all day long in Europe. I have no idea. I'm just trying to be a street photographer, be artsy as hell. It's all black and white.
And I think it's the new, right? Because like, I think about that too. Whenever I travel or go anywhere, I want to take photos all day.
Right.
When I'm at home,
when I'm in Whitefish,
no interest.
I bring it with me every day.
Right.
I have it with me. I do not.
Because you've seen everything. You've been there. It's interesting.
I'm working on that this year. I'm trying to figure out like how to make home.
How do I be inspired by my home?
But you know, it's like you get these trips where you shoot a bunch, shoot random things, shoot whatever's interesting, take terrible photos. Like it really doesn't matter because it doesn't cost money these days. Mm-hmm. There's no film to deal with.
Right.
So you've got unlimited possibilities. Like, and then you just play the number game. You shoot 1,000 photos, maybe you get 1. Cool. But you got 1. Shoot 10,000, you maybe get 100 photos. Like blanket, I shot 4,000 photos in a day.
Wow.
Yeah. But I got probably like 25 great photos.
There you go.
Yeah. Nice. Just because we were having a ton of fun.
Right. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That's cool. Where can people go find your photos?
On the Instagram right now, it'll just be a.chad.
Mm-hmm. Like you're a Chad?
Yeah. Yeah, punny. Punny.
A.Chad, yeah.
And then it's linked to my website and all that kind of stuff through there.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
And I guess any of the magazines that still exist on your newsstand this year. There's a bunch of them you can find some of your work in.
Forecast, Ski Journal, SBC Skier ran one. Those are the only ones I submitted to anyways.
Oh, yeah?
So
time to well, apparently you're doing something right, so time to submit to them all.
Yeah, building those relationships. That's the big one, right?
Yeah, right. And that's, I guess,
that was like Forecast is because of you.
Right.
100%. No questions asked. Oh. The Ski Journal, it's because the photo editor, Marshall, lives south of me.
Right.
And we like tagged up and we just like built a relationship.
There you go.
And then just happened to be running an article about Molly. And so it all kind of worked out. And
right.
Yeah.
Very cool, man. Well, I'm glad that we did this. I'm pumped for that.
Hell yeah.
And let's go skiing again tomorrow.
Let's do it.
Hopefully something cool happens.
Yeah.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Low Pressure Podcast, the podcast for skiers. This has been a Redmark Media production.